It was one of those nights that feel like the world itself had frozen over. Snow piled up on the street, power lines sagged under the weight of ice, and the whole neighborhood sat in darkness, except for a dim glow at the end of Ashford Lane. Inside that little house, Evelyn Carter, 73, widowed, moving slower than she once did, fed another log into her old wood stove. The storm had kept her company for hours, howling against the shutters, but she had lived through worse. Or so she told herself. Truth was, ever since her husband passed, the quiet had only grown heavier, and her only son Daniel had drifted so far into drink and resentment that he felt more like a stranger than family. She sat down with a cup of weak tea eyes wandering to the mantel. A faded photograph of her wedding day smiled back at her, and beside it, a tiny pair of yellow baby booties wrapped in tissue, her one keepsake of a grandchild who hadn't survived longer than a few days. Sometimes she caught herself reaching for them at night like the weight of that loss still clung to her fingertips. Then came the pounding on the door. Sharp, desperate, and behind it the unmistakable cry of a baby. Thin, weakening, the kind of sound that cuts straight through your chest. Evelyn froze. Everyone in town warned about strangers, especially those rough-looking bikers that sometimes rumbled through. And when she peeked out the frosted window, that's exactly what she saw, a giant of a man in a leather jacket covered in patches, his shoulders hunched against the snow, clutching a bundle that wailed against his chest. Beside him, a young woman no older than 25, soaked to the bone lips, trembling as she cried out, "Please, ma'am, our baby can't take much more." Evelyn's hand hovered on the lock. Every instinct told her to be careful, but that baby's weak cry, it was like hearing her grandson all over again. The bolt clicked, and she pulled the door wide open. "Get inside. Now. No child should be out in this." The man hurried in, unwrapping layers of blankets. "Thank you, ma'am. I'm Jacob Miller. This is my wife, Sarah, and our daughter, Rose. We were caught coming back from a rally when the storm hit." Evelyn took the baby into her arms without thinking, pressing the tiny body against her chest. "Sweet little angel," she whispered, rocking instinctively. "You're safe now, precious girl." Sarah collapsed near the stove, cradling a mug of tea Evelyn pushed into her hands. Jacob sat close by, watching his daughter breathe easier. "Most folks see this jacket and slam the door," Sarah murmured, voice breaking. "They don't see the man who works 16-hour days to keep us afloat. They don't see the father who hasn't slept in 2 nights because he's terrified his little girl won't make it." Evelyn looked at them, then at the baby slowly quieting in her arms. "People judge too quick," she said softly. "They see leather and tattoos, think they know the whole story. But what I see is a father fighting for his child. For the first time in years, something inside her unlocked. She had lost one baby she couldn't save, but tonight she could save this one." By morning, the storm had eased. Jacob and Sarah gathered their things, moving slow, their eyes still wide with gratitude. At the door, Jacob paused. He took Evelyn's frail hand into his massive one. "Most of this town turned us away. But you," his voice caught, "you opened your door. Hell's angels don't forget that. I'll be back. That's a promise." Sarah pressed a woven bracelet into Evelyn's palm. "I made it for her," she said, nodding at Rose. "But I want you to have it." Evelyn slipped it over her wrist, colors bright against her dark skin, and watched them disappear into the snow. 1 week later, she heard the thunder before she saw them, dozens of engines rolling down her street. She pulled her shawl tight, heart racing. This time, when the bikes parked outside, she didn't feel fear. She felt anticipation. Jacob strode up the path, not in leather now, but in a simple flannel looking more like a neighbor than a menace. Sarah followed, holding Rose, rosy-cheeked, stronger already. "Mrs. Carter," Jacob called. We came back to thank you the right way." Inside, they explained what their club truly was. Not the criminals people imagined, but a brotherhood mechanics, carpenters, teachers, folks who lived for the open road and for loyalty. "When you saved Rose," Jacob said, placing an envelope on the table, "you didn't just help one family. You helped our entire chapter. Every rider considers her family." So they all wanted to give back. Evelyn opened it and gasped, more money than she had seen since her husband's life insurance payout. "This is too much," she whispered. "I didn't help you for this." Jacob shook his head. "It's not about what you expected. It's about honoring values. We live by loyalty, gratitude, family." And they didn't stop with money. Outside bikers unloaded toolboxes, ladders, paint cans. "We've got carpenters, electricians, roofers," Sarah explained. "Let us fix this place for you." Evelyn's eyes blurred with tears as she held baby Rose again, the child giggling, her tiny hands grabbing at Evelyn's hair. For the first time in years, laughter filled that house. But kindness doesn't silence gossip. Neighbors whispered about the old woman keeping company with bikers. The rumor spread until it reached Daniel, her son, through the venomous lips of his wife Tricia. "Your mother's cozy with those bikers," Tricia sneered. "They gave her money too. Bet she's hiding it in that house." Daniel's jaw tightened, bitterness rising. Later, drunk at his usual bar, Tricia leaned in, nails tapping the table. "Funny, huh? Strangers get to play hero and her own son gets nothing." Daniel slammed the table. "That's my house. Everything in it is mine." That night they stumbled into Evelyn's home. Daniel tore through drawers, knocking over books. Tricia ripped Evelyn's wedding photos straight down the middle. The sound was like a blade slicing Evelyn's chest. "Don't go soft now," Tricia hissed. Evelyn appeared in the doorway, clutching the torn pieces. "That was your father and me, our wedding day. It's all I have left." Daniel looked away, shame flickering but drowned in liquor. "This place is mine," he muttered, "one way or another." And they left the door hanging open behind them, leaving her to cradle the broken photograph in silence. The next morning she barely had time to collect herself when Jacob and a few riders stopped by with pastries. But when they stepped inside, they caught Daniel ransacking again, Tricia smirking in the corner. "Look at this," she mocked. "Your sainted mother lets bikers fix her house, feed her. Who knows what else?" Jacob moved between Evelyn and Tricia, his voice low but unshakable. "This woman saved my family when your town turned its back. You put a hand on her. You go through me first." Daniel puffed up, ready to challenge him, but Jacob didn't flinch. He just pulled out his phone, spoke a few quiet words. Minutes later, the rumble grew a dozen, then 24 bikes flooding the street, headlights slicing through the winter gray. The club lined up outside, engines steady, a wall of loyalty. Their leader, a gray-bearded man with steel in his eyes, stepped forward. "Mrs. Carter is our friend. She's an honored name in this club. You'd be wise not to test the strength of that." Curtains twitched as neighbors peeked out, shocked at the sight. Bikers standing not as outlaws, but as guardians. A police cruiser pulled up, lights flashing. Officers stepped inside, taking in the wreckage, the smell of alcohol, the torn photograph. Tricia's protests fell flat. Within minutes, Daniel was led out in cuffs, Tricia following close behind. Evelyn stood in the quiet that followed her heart, aching for the boy she once knew. Jacob touched her hand gently. "You're his mother. I know you'll keep hoping." She nodded, tears glistening. "I'll never stop." In the weeks that followed, the bikers kept their promise. Groceries appeared at her door, firewood stacked neatly, little repairs, done without asking. Sometimes they stayed for supper, filling the house with laughter, baby Rose gurgling in her lap. One evening, Jacob looked across the table, his eyes heavy with sincerity. When the whole town turned away, you opened your door. I can't be Daniel, but if you'll let me, I'd like to call you Mom. Evelyn's breath caught. She rose, wrapped her arms around him, and for the first time in years, her house felt whole again. Time softened the town's judgment. They saw bikers fixing roofs, delivering food, protecting a woman who had once been invisible to them. Whispers turned to nods of respect, then quiet admiration. And Evelyn kept her door open, not just for them, but for anyone. A traveler caught in bad weather, a young couple with a broken heater, even the postman when snow buried his van. The fire never went out for long. One crisp spring morning, the town woke to the sound of engines. Not a menace now, but a reminder. A line of motorcycles rolled through Main Street slow and steady. People paused, watching, realizing that one act of kindness had rippled far beyond a single night. On her porch, Evelyn stood with the woven bracelet still on her wrist, the stove crackling behind her baby Rose's laughter still echoing in her memory. And she knew the fire she had lit that night would burn longer than any winter. So I'll ask you, this was Evelyn right to open that door, or should she have protected herself first? Have you ever seen kindness judged harshly, only to prove stronger in the end? Share your thoughts below, because this isn't just Evelyn's story, it's ours too. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell, because stories like this remind us that compassion might just be the strongest engine on the road.